Welcome back to my channel, everyone. In today's video I want to talk about ableism and different terms that are associated to people with disabilities, and are they offensive or not. Why should I talk about this subject? Well, I have a disability, as you all may know through watching my other videos. I'm visually impaired, I'm registered as blind, I just have 5% vision. So I do think I am qualified to talk about this subject. I think it's also important to say that every person with a disability will have their own view on ableism, and every person with a disability will have their own views whether a certain term is offensive or not to them. So what I find offensive, another person might not find offensive. So what I say on this video is just my experience, my views, and just my thoughts. What is ableism? Ableism is the intentional or unintentional discrimination of people with disabilities, and it's a form of oppression of people with disabilities. Ableism is a way that our culture views people with disabilities. Ableism is a system where it values people based on their minds and their bodies, and that's what society deems as normal. Ableism also is the belief that people with disabilities need to be fixed, or that they can't function as members of society. Ableism views disability as a defect rather than a dimension of difference. Ableist language can be a form of oppression against people with disabilities. There is a general cultural notion that disability is something to be viewed as negative, and that spurs from ableism. Ableism can be condescending, it can be patronising, and it can also be very hurtful. So let's look at a form of ableism in practice. I would have been told many a time that I can get my disability cured. I once was in an airport and a stranger came up to me and said that he needed to start praying with me because I had done something wrong in my past life, and therefore that he needed to pray with me because that's why I had the disability, because of something I had done bad in my past life. That type of ableism is trying to get across that disability is a form of punishment, and it comes across then that disability is something negative. Disability isn't a form of punishment. That type of behaviour from able-bodied people isn't helpful, and it is harmful, and it is patronising, and it is condescending. I think it is a kick in the teeth each day when people have this view of people with disabilities that we're all at home crying about having our disabilities and crying into our pillow and just crying that we need to be fixed. Sure, some days are hard and some days are good and some days are hard, but most of my hard days come from external factors such as lack of access to jobs, lack of access to buildings, lack of access to resources based on my disability. So it's more external factors that are causing my hardship. Another form of ableism is where able-bodied people would infantilize people with disabilities, especially women with disabilities. So some people would think because you're a woman with a disability that you can't be a good wife and that you can't cook and that you can't have sex. Well, women with disabilities do want to have children and they do want to have sex, and they do that, they can cook, we can do all those things. Rather than questioning our ability, can we do those things, maybe it would be more helpful if you asked, did we want to actually do those things? The reality is, if you want me to cook for you, iron your shirt, bear your kids, be a good wife, and if you're questioning whether I can do all of that, then the answer is yes. Yes, I can do that. I can bear kids. I can cook for you. I can have a great sex life. But the question really is not whether I have the ability to do that. It's, do I want to do that? That's what men should be asking women of disabilities. The reason why I talk about this topic, about ableism and infantilizing women with disabilities, is because when you do that and you treat women with disabilities as if they can't be a real woman, it does affect their self-worth. And I have seen it with women with disabilities where it has affected their self-worth, and they struggle then with relationships. So that's why it's important to talk about this. The best way to deal with ableist views in society is to recognise what's happening, to reject those views and to remove those views from society. Ableism can wear you down every single day, and I think you have to pick your battles, because if I was to be fighting ableism every single day and having debates with people every single day, it just wears you down. It really wears you down. And so that's why I pick my battles. And one of the battles that I picked was last October, when some of you may know through media coverage, where I got the standard to go to a world championship in ultra running, and I wasn't allowed entry in at first, because I was told that my guide runner wasn't allowed run with me, and I needed a guide runner. And I fought that, and thankfully I won that case, and my guide runner got to run with me. But that's the type of discrimination and prejudice that you have to put up with. That issue should have never arisen, but it did. And that's a bigger scale issue that you have to fight. The smaller scale issues that people have to fight is dealing with terminology that people use towards people with disabilities on an everyday basis. So a terminology such as, you might often hear people telling people with disabilities that they're inspirational. I get this so much. People tell me that I'm inspirational, and you can't correct every single person that says it to you, because you just be absolutely drained. And I do know people with disabilities who get very upset by being called inspirational. Personally, I don't get very upset, because I think there's bigger things to get upset about. What I want to try and convey is that it'd be better not to call me inspirational if you weren't actually inspired by me, because then it's kind of more a form of ableism then. What I'm trying to say is that call me inspirational, but then tell me what actually have I inspired you to do. If I've actually inspired you to do something, fantastic. But if you're just picking inspirational out of thin air and putting it down and telling me I'm inspirational for everyday living because of having a disability, then that is a form of ableism, and you might not know it, but that is a form of ableism. So hopefully all the people out there who are telling me that I'm inspirational, that I am actually inspiring you to do something, and that when you tell me that I'm inspirational, that you go off and you actually do something. Another term that's associated with people with disabilities is handicapped. Now personally, I hate this term. There are people out there who have disabilities who don't mind that term, but I hate the term. People have used that towards me. I will then debate with that person, and sometimes that can become quite awkward then, because I will stand up for myself and the views might become very heated, and then other days then I just have no energy to be debating with the person, but I will politely say, I'd prefer if you don't call me that again, because it is offensive to me. Another term would be retarded. Again, I don't like that term either, and people say that term without a second thought and associate it to people with disabilities. And again, that's ableism in action by using the term retarded towards a person with a disability. People would use the term that a person with a disability is different, and of course, yes, I am different. We're all different. And some people with disabilities get very upset by people telling them that they're different. Now personally, I can't understand why some people with disabilities get so upset by people telling you that you're different, because like, we're all different. but I suppose it comes down to whether your difference is seen in a negative way or whether it's seen in a positive way. Other terminology that gets used towards people with disability is disabled people. The appropriate terminology there is people with disabilities, because you're to put the person first. But through my research, again, there is division within the disability community. Some people don't mind the term disabled people, and whereas other people like myself believes it's more appropriate to have person with disability. Crippled, lame, imbecile, weak, invalid. These are all different terms that are used. Some people would accuse people with disabilities of being oversensitive regarding ableist language. You have to remember that language shapes thoughts, and thoughts shape how we behave towards people. Obviously, if you're using terminology such as crippled or lame or invalid, that's more all coming from a place of pity for the person with the disability and coming from a place of that you're superior to them. That's not helpful. That's today's video. I hope you've learned a small bit about ableism from it and about some terms that can be offensive to people with disabilities, and that you've also learned that every person with a disability is different and they have their own views, and my views might be different to other people's views. If you've been inspired by this video, then you might go off and do a bit of further research about ableism and other people's experiences of it. Listen to other people's voices. It's only through hearing a collection of voices that you get a real understanding of the topic. Yeah, I just hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope that I'm educating people and spreading awareness. As you know, I'll be putting up more content soon, so until then, take care, stay safe. Bye everybody.